This week's news word can help improve your work. Mindfulness.
Many schools are trying to bring a sense of calm into the classroom by a new brain training technique. It's called mindfulness.
Apparently it's pretty simple. It's even just one word: mindfulness. For such a peaceful practice, mindfulness is blown up.
So what exactly is mindfulness? And what's the hype?
Ever since I started meditating, I've been trying to define the word mindfulness. It's a word that I throw around a lot, considering I supposedly teach it. So I should know what it means, right? But in reality, it hasn't been that easy.
Mindful of your surroundings and not doing anything too stupid.
Mindfulness?
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it's like a fine line between consideration.
Oh, that's going to be a tough one for me to answer. I actually have difficulty with that word.
Is it meditation? Is it being in the present moment? Is it awareness? Or is it something more than that?
The way I see it, mindfulness is a word.
It is a word.
And the reason why I've been having trouble nailing down a definition is because this word actually has a bunch of different definitions.
The dictionary definition. Be mindful of your physical distance. Be mindful of your toilet paper usage. Be mindful of the noise. Bro. Standard boring definition. Let's see if Urban Dictionary has a more interesting one. Definitely. Alright, to the internet. Here's where it gets tricky. Mindfulness is a word that's thrown around a lot. A lot. And it's been defined a lot. The definition that I hear most comes from Jon Kabat-Zinn. The awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. Let's say you're taking a walk, and you're paying attention to the way your legs feel as they move, the way your feet feel as they hit the ground, the muscles in your feet, your ankles, your legs, your hips, your abdomen, all working together to keep your balance. That momentary sense of falling as your body leans forward, and the weight of your body transfers from one leg to another. Just noticing how everything feels as you walk along, not judging the experiences. Pretty simple, right? But wait, what about this sentence? Is mindfulness right for me? Or from my own website? I teach practical mindfulness. Or how about this from the Mayo Clinic, where they explicitly define mindfulness as a type of meditation. Remember that Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition was awareness, which is a state of being, not a meditation or a practice. So mindfulness refers to the act of keeping your attention focused in the present moment non-judgmentally to achieve a state of being that is also called mindfulness.
How about this though? Mindfulness is on the rise. Or how mindfulness became a billion-dollar business. The use of mindfulness is different in this context again. It seems to refer to an entire industry or a movement of some sort. And if I'm guessing, the mindfulness movement. And that movement has also seemingly been hijacked by an entire culture. A culture that looks something like this. And so sometimes the word mindfulness also refers to this culture as well. Okay. So these definitions seem to be a bit different than the dictionary and Jon Kabat-Zinn definitions. They seem to be purely colloquial. But you can't have the word mindfulness in its current cultural context without having an understanding about where it came from. Mindfulness actually has its roots in Buddhism. So maybe we should back it up a little bit.
I'll explain. A little history. A long time ago, supposedly some 2,500 years ago, around here, there was supposedly some guy named Siddhartha Gautama who was born into an aristocratic family, grew up rich, but one day decided to leave his comfortable life, and yada yada yada. He sat under a tree and meditated for a really long time, and bam, he was enlightened and became the Buddha. Then he traveled all around and taught a lot of people what he learned until he died, and after he died, his followers continued spreading his teachings all around the world. Eventually, a religion would grow from this, called, obviously, Buddhism. Bear with me, please. I'm about to tie all this history stuff back to mindfulness. Now, Buddhism split into several different schools over the years. One of these schools is called Theravada Buddhism, which has influenced a lot of the Buddhism that you see in the world today. Theravada Buddhism has, as its core teachings, scriptures that are written in a language called Pali. In these Pali texts is a Pali word, sati, and sati is where the word mindfulness comes from. In 1881, some British dude named Rhys Davids supposedly first translated the Pali word sati into the English word mindfulness. Now, the word mindfulness had already existed before this, dating back to about 1530, so Mr. Davids didn't exactly invent the word, he just gave an English word to a Pali word. But because Davids had so much influence on the study of Pali for so long, this translation has lived on since then. These Pali scriptures, called the Pali Canon, are broken up into 3 parts. One of these parts is called the Suttas, which is the Pali word for discourses. Basically, they're things the Buddha said about certain topics. And it just so happens that there's a discourse about mindfulness, called the Satipatthana Sutta. The word sati in Pali translates into English literally as memory. But when you put it in the context of meditation, it's more like attention or awareness. Remember, Rhys Davids translated sati as mindfulness, and even though it's still the accepted translation, that's largely due in part to the word being picked up by English-speaking Buddhist culture, not because of its accuracy. Rhys himself played around with a bunch of other translations before settling on the word mindfulness. Okay, real quick, let's recap, just in case I've lost you. We're trying to figure out what the word mindfulness means. The English word mindfulness has roots in Buddhist culture. It was first translated into English in 1881 by a British dude named Rhys Davids, who translated it from one of the earliest Buddhist texts called the Satipatthana Sutta, which is written in a language called Pali. The Pali word it was translated from is called sati. Okay, now back to the Satipatthana Sutta. In the sutta, you'll also find a few other things. Sati is almost always combined with another Pali word, sampajanya. Sampajanya roughly translates to clear comprehension or good judgment. So from that, sati sampajanya would mean something like pay attention to and evaluate something. Basically, it's used as an evaluation on top of pure awareness. Whenever something enters your awareness, there's a decision that can be made. Is it useful or is it not useful? Should I pay attention to it or should I not pay attention to it? A lot of scholars go even further with this judgment thing. There's another word in the sutta, appamada, basically taking sati to also include an aspect of ethics, such as, is this thought wholesome or unwholesome, harmful or not harmful? And some scholars argue that this ethical quality appamada is something that's missing in modern interpretations of mindfulness. But wait, there's more! Another quality of mindfulness that some people think is missing is yet another Pali word called atapi. Atapi means intensity or effort. Mindfulness can have a connotation of being passive, and with atapi it would make the quality of mindfulness more confrontational, penetrating the object of your attention, covering it completely. Okay, so the question is, since the word mindfulness originally comes from the Pali word sati, and the word sati means attention, should mindfulness just mean attention? But what about Sampaññana and Appamada and Atapi? Should mindfulness include the qualities of clear comprehension, ethics, and intense effort? Should mindfulness just stick to meaning sati, but without the Sampaññana and Appamada parts? And if we're leaving those parts out, do we need other English words to describe those types of mindfulness? On that matter, should we even try to keep the original meaning of sati from the Pali scriptures? I mean, mindfulness is an English word after all, and it's been translated then handed down over generations, and the word has been adopted by our current Buddhist culture and transformed kind of into its own meaning now. But are the current day denotations of mindfulness essentially watering down mindfulness? And actually, if you think back to the Jon Kabat-Zinn definition, which is present moment awareness without judgment, it's kind of an oxymoron because you can't really have non-judgment and present moment awareness at the same time, because if you're trying to keep your awareness in the present moment, the least you would have to do is judge whether or not what you're aware of at any given moment is based in the present moment.
Look, we could sit here all day and try to figure out what the Buddha originally meant by mindfulness. 30 years after the Buddha died, his followers got together so that they could preserve his teachings for future generations. The only problem was that they didn't actually write shit down back then. So supposedly, the Buddha's cousin Ananda, who apparently had a really good memory, recited out loud, like with his voice, all of the Buddha's teachings, which he had apparently memorized, so that all of the other monks could memorize it too. And they did this. They passed it down orally for like 450 years. It took 450 years for someone to actually write something down. The earliest surviving versions of the Pali Canon, which again is where the word sati comes from, is dated back to almost an entire millennium after the Buddha died. So if we're going to be trying to interpret the original meaning of mindfulness, how much can we actually take from old Buddhist texts? If you go to India, different parts of India have different languages. To this day, India officially has 22 different languages, and most likely back in the time of the Buddha there were way more. Pali is what is known as a trade language. It's a language that's made up of other languages so that people could trade with each other. And most scholars agree that the Buddha didn't even speak Pali itself. He most likely spoke something that's only similar to Pali. Also, we have to keep in mind that Buddhist history itself has been pretty whitewashed. Almost everything that we know about Buddhist history, the history of Hinduism, the history of Pali, Sanskrit, and Indian history at large have been brought to us by super colonial resources, mostly by old white British men. Not only that, but almost all of the Buddhist institutions throughout history have been super male dominated and sexist. Scandal after scandal. When I first started filming this, I thought it would be simple. I thought it would be easy to explain what mindfulness is. I thought I could easily trace mindfulness back to its Buddhist roots and explain it in its original context. But the more I tried to do this, and the more research I did, the more I realized that we'll never know. We can never know what the Buddha meant way back then. And just because mindfulness comes from some old Buddhist scripture doesn't mean it's about Buddhism at all.
There are concepts of mindfulness in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Taoism, even atheism. Every single religion and culture has some sort of concept or practice of mindfulness. So you might be asking, why are we even trying to define it? Is that even important? And yeah, it is important to talk about words and their meanings because, of course, it's one of the main ways that we communicate with each other, through words, so that when I say mindfulness, you know what I'm talking about. Given that, it's also important to know when to let it go, when to not use words. Because at the end of the day, it's not about words. I could tell you how this flower looks like. I could tell you its shape, its color, its smell. I could tell you exactly how beautiful it is, but you'll never experience this flower until you turn it over in your hand, till you smell it, till you hold it, behold it. And the thing is, this flower is communicating all of this entire time. It's communicating its color, its shape, its beauty, and it doesn't need to say anything. And that's the way it is with mindfulness. It's just a word.
It is a word. What matters is the connection the word implies.
The only way for you to know mindfulness is to experience it yourself, to come to know it yourself. And others will know you by your mindfulness. You don't need to say anything. And through that coming to know it, you'll come up with your own definition. So I asked some of my friends. I'll just keep this piece of tape over my... There we go.
Hey, beautiful family.
Yo, Martin.
Hey, man, can you hear me?
So it looks like it's recording. It's just a simple question. The answer might not be simple at all. I'm just going to ask it to you before I sort of psych you out. Not like I can actually do that. The question is, what is mindfulness? What is mindfulness? What is mindfulness? What is mindfulness?
Oh, that's a good question. So it feels like one of those questions, those who know don't tell, and those who tell don't know. Hey, there, got an amen from the chorus.
Mindfulness is non-judging awareness. That's my favorite. The other one I really like, which is a little bit more esoteric, is present moment awareness without the filter of greed, hatred, or delusion. When I contemplate that, and personally, I hate the word mindfulness.
Yeah.
Because number one, there's no mind in mindfulness. Because it's awareness. And there's no heart in mindfulness. Because it really is awakened heart, awakened mind. So it's such a horrible word. Well, like anything, it leads to something paradoxical. Because it's non-judging awareness, but then you evaluate as to how good non-judging awareness is, and then you judge it as worthy, and then you want it, and then you just screwed yourself.
I think it has to do with dropping deeper than just what am I noticing. I'm the space of awareness, and somehow my attention kind of compresses from this awareness. And so now I'm both the attention and the awareness. And I meet that thing that's bubbling up, which also I am. None of this makes any sense. A lot of times it's just craziness. And, I just try to ride the waves of the craziness and kind of wait and see if maybe another one of those sync moments will happen. But when they do happen, it's like a wow experience. Like, wow, this is so cool.
As I exhale, I get to just be with again. And I think it's that with again that's the mindfulness for me. Can I show you? Recognizing you're not part of the story, but you're also creating the story. So I got scared there for a moment, and that is me stepping out of it, adding my fear layers, and then I can sink back into mindfulness, let go of those wantings to create it in a different way, and just allow it and create beauty from this moment by appreciating what's here. and seeing that there's joy and seeing that there's interest and creativity and laughs and youth and love.
When I think of mindfulness, I think about my wife. And we decided early in our relationship that, let's not focus on the big holidays and Christmas to say, I care, but let's try to take time and recognize each other every day. So every day I tell her I love her. I take time to notice her, and look, every day I get to hear that she loves me. So that's what mindfulness means to me, taking time to enjoy the moment.
I think mindfulness is really about guarding yourself from trying to control what your experience is and trying to change how things are, because things are the way they are because in a way they're supposed to be that way.
The first thing that popped into my head was beyond words. I think curiosity is a key component of mindfulness as well. And then I guess the other thing to say is it mindfulness of mind, body, feelings, and emotions? Or is it mindfulness of the whole grand catastrophe? Or can it be mindfulness of all those things?
It's about cultivating presence. It's about being present for what's happening in us and for the people around us, to understand and develop compassion for myself and for others. And in the end, for mindfulness is for me the cultivation of love for all living beings.
I don't think that there's a universal answer for what is mindfulness. Ironically, I feel like mindfulness is the absence of your mind. It's the absence of your mind's rampage. It's the ability to be aware fully and completely in whatever you're doing, whatever that means to you. And it's just being friends with the moment.
Noticing the present moment as it is and allowing it to be as it is with an air of friendliness.
How to do that, that's the hard part. With practice, is from what I understand. That's about it.
Say hi.
Hi.
During the course of making this film, my definition of mindfulness changed almost daily. I'll give you my current favorite definition. It's engaged presence. Engaged meaning being with, and presence meaning just being. So being with being. And I like this definition because it's simple. It's just awareness, but it's intentional, not passive. Awareness of what's happening inside our minds, what our thoughts and our feelings, and what's happening in our bodies, but also what's happening outside our bodies. The experience of your environment and your community. And if that experience is racism or social inequity or bigotry or bias of any sort, then that's got to be included in your mindfulness. And if that experience is the privilege of not having those biases, then that's got to be included too. Mindfulness of our world and society and the structures and systems and the way those work within them. Those also have to be included in our mindfulness. So maybe take a moment right now and drop in and ask yourself, what's present for me right now? What's going on in my life right now? And ask with your heart, not with your mind. That's what mindfulness is. Say bye. Bye.
Bye.